What's going on, everybody? How you doing tonight? Oh boy, another live stream. Thinking about making this much more regular. Got a lot of ideas floating around right now, but yeah. What's going on, everybody? What are you all up to? Let me know where you coming from so I can say hello to that part of the world. What's going on, XMHND? What's going on? All right, guys. So today I just wanted to have like a little bit of story time, and I kind of wanted to share um, some of the things that I kind of plan on doing, and just talk about how you might be able to start finding work as an iOS developer because I know that's a problem that a lot of people are struggling with. And I'm just gonna share my story, share a couple of tips, and hopefully, you find some of that information useful. But yeah, um, I wanted to talk about how I pretty much got my first job, and I talked about this a couple of times, but I want to talk a little bit about the stuff that I haven't really mentioned too much, or I haven't really touched too much on detail. So when I was starting out, first of all, I if you don't know, I learned online. I took online courses, just small ones from Udemy, and that's pretty much where I learned. I learned through Udemy and I learned through YouTube. That's all I really needed to know. I didn't really go to school. I technically did get an associate's degree in psychology for whatever that's worth, but it's not anything that contributed to me getting a job. Maybe just the fact that I went to school and it gave me one area that I realized that I didn't want to be go in that direction. So if that makes sense, like essentially all school really did for me was made me realize that hey, school's not for me and that psychology is not what I want to be doing with my life. So that's all that school did for me. Now, when I finished these online courses, I didn't start applying for work right away. I felt like it was best practice to get an app in the App Store because realistically, finishing a course doesn't mean anything. It doesn't help. It does. I don't think that it helps you. Um, some of them started providing certificates and things like that, but literally, if that's really what you want to start doing, you can probably Google certificate, Photoshop a couple of different things on there, and say that you've mastered the most amazing iOS developer challenge out there because it's just really made by some random person that doesn't necessarily have any credentials behind their name to be giving you a certificate in the first place. So certificates from online courses don't really matter unless it's like a real university, and honestly, it doesn't really matter what papers you have to show. What matters is your capabilities. And the only way to show your capabilities is through a portfolio. And I mean, well, it's not technically the only way, but it's the easiest way to show your capabilities to somebody that doesn't know you, right? Is your portfolio. So, what's going on, Alan from Mexico? Android apps. This will technically still apply for you. I got into iOS development, but yes, this will apply for anybody going into even web development. This would apply to. But back to what I was saying is the easiest way to just kind of show off your work or to show off your capabilities, to show your work and to show what you've created, have a portfolio put together. Now, you can do this by having apps on the App Store. You can do this by doing a website that, just showcases the app. And if you're gonna go the website route where you're gonna have a website that showcases maybe these apps or a website that showcases other websites that you put together, then what you want to do is you want to kind of give a brief overview. Especially this should be like a designated page for a portfolio, where you're kind of going over some of the technologies that you used and maybe a brief description of some of the things that you had, maybe like some of the troubles that you had with it, because that's usually a question that comes up. But I didn't do the portfolio thing. All I did was I released an app to the App Store. And it was extremely simple. It was a simple note-taking app. It's still up there on the App Store. It's called Brain Dump Clear Your Mind. And all it did was it used core data to save something that a user typed in, and it just saved it. It's just simply just like notes, except it always opens up to the note taking screen. So that was the benefit that I was going for. I was like, you know what? It's just like notes, but it does this one thing where I get to go to writing a note a little bit faster. And I saw that as being a benefit, and I put it out there. Now it took about, I think, 2 weeks at this point, because core data was really something that I had to learn to work with. Core data is not that complex, but starting out, it can definitely seem pretty complex. And just when you're starting out, everything just moves a little bit slower. You're still learning. You're still trying to figure out what's the best case for all of these different things. But yeah, it took about 2 weeks for me to put it together and put it out, and I was only working on it after hours, like after work or something like that, or on my days off. And I eventually released it. So once I released it, I was pretty happy. It's definitely a milestone. It will definitely boost your confidence, like saying, hey, I have an app on the App Store. Just the fact that you have something up that's in production mode that anybody can go access is going to be an amazing feeling. So that would be my first tip. If you're looking to get work, you definitely want to have something that somebody can play with in order to kind of see what your skill level is at. And whether that be an iOS app, an Android app, cross-platform app, or a website, it's going to make you feel good to have something that you're saying, hey, this is available, this is out there, and this is something that anybody can go touch and play with. And it most likely solves a problem, right? So, what's up, Mohammed? You said that you're an iOS developer in need of a remote job. I'll touch on that in a bit. So just that's the first tip, is getting something out there to play with, something on your portfolio, right? Now, when I put this out, I felt pretty good, but I still didn't apply for jobs. I just apparently didn't want it enough. But I did start doing some networking. I started talking and seeing if there was somebody within my local network, somebody that I had instant access to start doing some work. Like, so I didn't start going out there and applying for positions. I'm a pretty lazy guy. So I don't like to do the things that deal with a lot of work, and submitting CVs and resumes to a bunch of companies is too much work for me. So what I did was I started networking. I started asking around inside my local network, and I was lucky enough to know that, or to speak with my dad, and he had somebody that was actually in the process of building an app. So what I ended up doing was I ended up actually, you know, contacting this guy, and or I think my dad actually, spoke to him a little bit and then connected us. Anyways, we got in touch, right? We got in touch, and what I was willing to do was I was willing to work for free. So I was being brought on more as like a consultant more than an actual iOS developer. And my goal was to essentially give the client some insight onto as to what the turnaround time should be for the app. Also, since I was learning Sketch at the time, the Sketch app, which is just for design, and I have a video talking about whether developers should, or why developers should be learning design. But yeah, I started designing the app, and I made it look way beautiful, because the people I think that they didn't have a designer, and I found this out later, but the client was actually working with a middleman that was outsourcing the work. And I think the guy that was outsourcing it was probably doing the designs himself, and he wasn't a designer. So he was just a project manager, aka a middleman, and the client was working with the project manager, which was outsourcing the work to overseas. And this became this usually becomes a problem for US clients, because when you're working with somebody when you're working with somebody, there's always going to be a lack of communication. When you are working for somebody else, when you're doing a job with somebody else, there's always going to be a lack of communication. It doesn't matter if you're in the same room or if you're on the other side of the planet. There's always going to be this missing connection, right? And this missing connection, this like, okay, so let me just slow down and talk about this. So if two people are in a room, they were born in the same city and grew up together, right? Or grew up in a similar environment all the way, and they just don't really know each other, but they come to meet and they're talking in this room, the client and the developer, and they go and they're talking about what the app is going to do. What's going to happen is there's going to be some stuff that's lost in communication, even though they grew up in the same city, even though they know all the same similar things. There's going to be a lack in communication, and there's going to be a disconnect. This always happens, no matter what the scenario is, whether it's about development or about anything. If you guys have ever played that game, Telephone, like maybe in like kindergarten, where everybody's sitting in a circle and you're supposed to whisper a secret into one person's ear, and it goes around in a group and every person is supposed to whisper that secret into the next person's ear. What you find out is that as it goes through all these different people, the message gets distorted into turning into something completely different. So this is going to always happen. Now, when you're working with somebody that's in a different time zone or speak that has a different native language than you, this is going to increase the amount of miscommunication, and this is going to lead to some frustration. So for everybody that's kind of looking for remote work, and you're trying to contact clients that might be in a different country, that might have a different native language than you, you're going to want to take this into consideration. Yeah, Landside says that it's called Broken Telephone. Thank you for the name of the game. Yeah, it's called Broken Telephone. You say one thing and then it becomes distorted by the time it reaches back that other person. Matt says, since I became a subscriber of yours, I've realized how similar the music business and coding worlds are. Getting a portfolio, discography. Sorry, I don't know how to read. Start working for free, networking, yeah, communication. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for the validation. I appreciate that. But back to what I was saying. When you're speaking with somebody that is not coming from a similar walk of life as you, they're in a different country, different native tongue, right? There's going to be an increased amount of miscommunication, and things are going to get messed up, and this is going to lead to a lot of revisions. So anybody that's going for that type of scenario, remote work or things like that, just keep that in mind, that you need to really work on decreasing that amount of miscommunication, or else clients won't want to hire you, because you're going to end up building something that they didn't ask for. All right. So now take this idea of being from a different walk of life, being in the same room and not having the same native tongue. Obviously, like I said, a lot of miscommunication, but try putting one person in the middle of that. Now the amount of miscommunication is like just, exponential, because now you have this person that is hearing one thing and they have to relay that information to another person. And if these people don't speak the same tongue, or the client and the middleman don't speak the same tongue, there's going to be massive amounts of miscommunication, right? So that was the situation at with the client that I was working with, the person that I was working for free. Now, when I found this out, I kind of let him know that this guy, because the middleman wasn't up front, he made it sound like, since he was in the US, he made it sound like the developers were in the US. And and the problem became that the communication was slow, because when the project manager would hear something, they would have to wait a couple of hours to relay the information, because the developers were on the other side of the world. And that created a lot of lag in the development process. Now, I was letting the when I found this out, I told the client that, hey, this is going on and this is going to affect your business. And when when that kind of happened, the project manager kind of got mad at me. The client was already working with this guy for a while, for like over a year, and the project still wasn't really working. But I don't know. He felt more comfortable listening to the project manager than me as a consultant. But hey, whatever. So yeah. So I was giving him information. I was giving him information on what the deadline should be like, based off of what my limited experience could do, how fast I could turn around and put out the project, and what he should be expecting. And then also I was creating designs for the app, because it looked like somebody that only knew web. They were using radio buttons, and they were, I don't know, it just really looked like a website, like a ugly website on an iPhone. That's what it looked like. So I redesigned the whole entire thing, and once again, still all for free. I provided the designs, and at this point, the project manager already doesn't like me. So when I provided the designs, I don't know if he even showed them to the developers, or if he just came back and said, no, it's going to take too much time. We would have to rewrite all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, I provided designs to make the app look very polished, and look actually nice, and make it look native. And Thomas Watland, what's up, man? Norway just donated 20 Knox. Not sure what the exact currency is, but I super appreciate it. He super chatted me 20 Knox. Not sure, like I said, not sure what the exact currency is, but I really appreciate that. Um, and Trung says that my tutorials are great. Thank you. Always a pleasure. Got a lot of stuff on the way. But yeah, at this point, he wasn't really listening to me anymore. And as a consultant, you kind of have to be willing to work with clients that aren't going to listen to you. All you can do is provide your best professional opinion, support it by facts and logic and things like that, proof of why you're suggesting this, why you're making this suggestion, and why it makes sense to their business. And I did all of that, but he still went with the project manager. So at this point, I'm already starting to. So this lasted a couple of months. I was consulting. I was providing business ideas. I was providing marketing ideas. I was providing as much as I could, as because I have like a lot of experience in a lot of different fields, and I was providing as much information as possible to help make this guy as successful as possible. Now, when he started to stop listening to my suggestions, or when because we would sit in this room and we'd talk about all the possibilities of the app, and what it could be, and what would be like, something to consider. When he stopped listening to me, I kind of just like started looking for a job. So it took about, I was working there for like 3 to 4 months, once again free, and this was just like something that we just occasionally met up. And I started looking for a job. And this was when, like, it took a couple of months. It honestly took a couple, actually like 2 months into doing that consulting. I think I did it. I think I started applying, but it took a couple of months before I started applying, and then it took a couple of months to actually get hired. Now, when I was applying, I was doing all the typical things, doing like monster.com, where you're doing mass applications. I tried to get on Hired. Most beginners probably won't be able to get on Hired.com, but I tried to get on Hired, and they said that no, there weren't any current matches. Um, and then I also started going to meetups now, or I was going to meetups quite a bit already, but I started going to meetups even more at this point. Now, the reason why I went to meetups, and there's a whole entire video dedicated to this, why meetups are important for developers, just check my channel. The reason why I started going to meetups was just because it seemed like there was always somebody looking for a developer at each of those meetups. So these meetups would be revolving around things like Swift or iOS or whatever, right? And I would go to these meetups, and they would be there would almost always be somebody there looking to hire somebody, or if not, there would just be somebody looking to work on a project together. Anyway, I got I was willing to, put in I was willing to do a lot to get hired. I really wanted to get hired. I was hating my job at this point. I was working at a restaurant. So what I ended up doing was I ended up um actually I ended up meeting like two different people. It was pretty close to the same time, but it was like maybe like separated by 2 weeks or so. And these people, they were looking for developers, so I started talking to them after the meetup. We got into contact. Nothing really resulted in the end of it, but I was definitely willing to work with them. And for one of them, I came up with a concept app. So I came up with the concept, or I took their concept. I signed an NDA. I got their concept, and I came up with as much as I could in one night as possible, and I showed that to them, and then we started talking about compensation and things like that, and they just didn't have the money to really make an app, so it kind of just fizzled out. The other person, I did research. They wanted to essentially create, I don't know if this is violating NDA, but you can't do it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. They essentially wanted to do something with custom emojis, which I don't think you could really make your own emojis, but they wanted to do an emoji with like emojis, but it was like, hyperlinks to websites and stuff like that. Kind of like how Twitter does it. Like, how they make their custom emojis, but they wanted to have that inside the native like messaging app, and that's pretty much impossible. So, like to use them like actual emojis, to insert emojis into the emoji keyboard. That's what they wanted. So, anyway, I did research on that, and once again, I was very new, so I didn't know if it was possible or not. I was pretty sure it was impossible, but I still looked into it. I still spent a lot of time on it, and it's not possible. And I don't even think that like the messages extension was out yet, so it really wasn't possible. But anyway, yeah, I was willing to do some work for free, and that kind of helped give me kind of like opportunities to almost make it, right? So going back to just the primary applications, I ended up getting a couple of phone calls, getting even fewer like on-site interviews. And one thing that I want to let you know is that if you're going out for a company, and they're going to have you and a bunch of other developers meet up all at the same time, and then they're just going to pass out a packet to you and say fill this out and then turn it in like it's a test, like a pop quiz. This isn't a company you want to work for. So I would honestly say walk out, but I know how, desperate times, desperate measures works, but you don't want to work for a company like that. But anyways, I was I was brought into an interview like that, right? Where they told me I had an interview in like a week or two, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to do something that was similar to their website but in a native app. So what I did was I spent probably like, I don't know, 20 hours. I'd say 20 hours within 1 week, which is kind of a lot when you're working almost full time. Um, I spent probably 20 hours putting together an app that encapsulated the idea of their website and what I thought it was supposed to do, because they didn't even send out an NDA. They said, this is what the website is. We're looking to make an app, and we need an iOS developer. And that was pretty much it. There wasn't really a concept behind what the app was actually even going to do. So I took the initiative of turning their website into an app, and it looked pretty good for a beginner that didn't know what the app was supposed to do, and it was all done for free before an interview, right? So it looked pretty good. Um, so I did that. I made the app and I brought it with me on my phone, right? So I show up to the interview. It turns out that they're just passing out packets of Objective C questions talking about memory management and stuff like that. And they just have you write it out and turn it in, and then there's no real interview, right? So I get there and I did know some Objective C, but I didn't know anything about ARC and memory management and things like that. Um, and what ended up happening was I knew that I bombed the test because I left whole entire sections blank. It was like a 5-page packet asking all these different questions, and most of them were like, I wouldn't say whiteboarding questions, but they were like iOS development questions that particularly pertained to Objective C. So you would have to have like a really strong understanding of Objective C and things like that in order to really have answered those questions. There were a few that I probably got right, not sure, can't remember. And when I was turning that into not even the developer that was going to be reviewing them, when I was turning that into the person that was like in charge of collecting them, I was like I felt like shit. Like I really felt like shit because I was like, man, I just bombed this test. I didn't even know that it was going to be a test, right? I didn't even get a chance to really even speak with somebody. I show up, they're passing out a packet, and that's it. That's pretty much it. There was no real interview. So I'm telling the guy, I'm like, look, if you could please just show this to the developer. Like I spent so much time on it. I worked really hard on getting an app here. You could just take my, like, you don't even have to take me into the other room. You could just take my phone real quick, just 10 minutes of his time. Take my phone into the room, show him what I did, and if you could just show that to him, because I know that I failed the test. I know that I failed the test, but I feel that my abilities are still like useful, right? So I'm pleading with this guy, and he says, how did I do this? I forgot if how I did this. Oh, this is what I did. So I'm pleading with this guy to please let me show this to the developer. And he is like, oh, I don't know, blah, 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 I don't know. And he says, you know what? Come back in an hour, or like let me get back to you. Let me wait for everybody to finish, and then I'll like call you or I'll text you in an hour, right? So I'm like, fuck, man, like I can't even believe that I spent like this much time on something and they're not even gonna give me the chance to show it like at all. Like I can't even show it. Like the guy that I was trying to tell him to look at it, I was trying to show him and he didn't even want to look at it. I was like that's kind of a fucked up thing to do, like from one person to another, to like you see that I'm in a desperate situation and you see that I'm pleading and you see that I'm trying to show that I can be useful, but to just deny me the opportunity like that was kind of fucked up to me. But so yeah, he says I'll reach back out to you in an hour. I'll call you or I'll text you, whatever. Right? So I'm like, fuck. So I get in my car and I go off. I actually go to a comic book store because I was still reading comics at the time, and I needed to get my brain off of it because I was like just really frustrated with the whole situation. And I start heading back over to the area like in front of the place um when the hour's almost up, and I think I text or I call this guy, and there's like no answer. No answer. He's just not answering me. Like I have the phone number. I'm calling, or like I didn't want to be too pestering. I think I texted him, and then I waited like 10 minutes after that hour, and then I called him and no answer. And I was like, fuck, man, I can't even believe like they didn't show me, like they didn't even let me show my ability. Like they just wanted to base everything off of this packet of questions. So it was kind of fucked up. But anyway, that was one of the most disappointing times. But that didn't discourage me from continuing to take that approach. So the approach that I'm referring to is essentially building out what you think that the client wants to see even before they ask for it, and then try to present that to them, and that will help make you stand out on top. So how would somebody that's, and this works really well for remote, I think, if you if you're looking for remote work and you're looking on some of these sites like free, well, it's not, is it still upwork.com or freelancer or Upwork or elance or whatever it is, if you're looking on any of these websites, right, where you can send something, like you're able to send your resume or something like that to the client directly and they're going to review it. What I would say is if you could include a video, most of these platforms support video now. If you could include a video of whatever you can gather from the app based off of the description that they're putting, because usually they have to say like, oh, I want to make like an audio app, or oh, I want to make a social network or whatever. If you could put together a demo of whatever it is that they're looking for, that is going to give you a huge head, like it's going to give you a huge lead above everybody else, because if you're showing them that there's something already, if there's already something, yeah, freelancer or Fiverr, things like that, if you're able to come up with that concept and kind of present it to them before they even hire you, like it's only going to show them that you're capable of doing, not only are you capable of doing it, but if they're in the right business mindset, because some of these people aren't like real business people, they're just like, oh, I want to make an app, like just randomly, right? But if they're in the right business mindset, they'll see that you're working harder and that you want to actually, like, you really want this job because you spent time on it. So this is actually more effective than sending out like a CV, because most people don't want to read. But if you could show like a short, like, 15-30 second video just flipping through the idea, like the screens and the idea, and if you can make it more tailored, like if you can use their name inside of that preview, like, or their company name or something like that, to show them, hey, this is tailored to your app, this is going to give you a huge, like a huge lead on everybody else, because then it's like, oh, well, yeah, this guy already knows how to do it, it's already right there. Like, now you have to be careful, because they might assume that, oh, well, it could be done tomorrow. So just keep that in mind, that that's a drawback of doing this type of thing, but it does give you a huge lead. And and what you can do when you're doing this is, you know you can also keep it, if you make it look pretty enough, you can just strip out that person's company name or whatever, and then you can, like, if you decide to just build it all the way out, I don't know, but you can kind of add it as a screenshot on your portfolio, even though it's not like publicly accessible, like maybe it's not on the app store or something. You could just keep it as something that you add it to your portfolio, and that would still be something to show. Now, you would obviously be doing this for free, because the person hasn't even really contacted you yet, but it shows initiative. It shows that you're capable, and it's super time consuming. So I wouldn't recommend doing this for, if you're going to apply to 100 places, don't do this for 100 places. Maybe try to do this like one batch at a time. You apply for 5 different positions, you create 5 different apps real quick, and like prototype apps, and then you send that into those 5 different, like the top 5 that you want to choose from. You send in those prototypes, and that will probably help your chances a lot more than just sending in just a resume that nobody's really going to read anyway. Now, like I said, this is most effective for, remote jobs, or working for a small company or something like that. When it comes to medium to large size companies, this probably won't be as effective, because they may or may not already have an app, or if they don't have an app, a medium sized company is going to probably, um, you know, it's just like a little bit less likely if you're going for a medium to large size company, because a large company is going to probably not want to see a whole app. It's going to be somebody that isn't even on the dev team for the most part. But You can definitely try it. It might help your chances. It couldn't hurt your chances, but it'll probably won't be as effective as working with an individual for like remote work or a super small company. So that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing when I was applying. Now, this next part I already kind of covered a couple of times, but I actually got my job. I got my current job, which is my first job as a developer, through meetup.com. Now, I was going to meetups, like I said, I was able to find some people there that like just wanted to hire, or wanted to, work with a developer. But where I actually found the listing for my first job is actually on meetup.com. On the discussion boards, they had like some type of bulletin board for the group. And that was actually where I saw my current manager post that, hey, I'm looking for an iOS developer. They have to be familiar with or able to do networking or something like that. So I responded and I said, oh, it's funny because I actually have that note in there somewhere. But I responded and I actually said, I can do it. I can come to the office. I was pretty much saying yes to everything because I really wanted the job, right? And I set my minimum payment, which was I'll actually share it with you. My minimum payment was 65,000, right? So keep in mind that I live in the LA area. Not really. If you're from here, then I don't really live in the LA area. But if you're not from California, then I do live in the LA area. I live about 80 miles away from LA now. It used to be like 40 miles then. So I was in the LA area, and the LA area is a higher paying area than a lot of areas in the world. So 65,000 is extremely low, for a developer in that area. Extremely low. But I was willing to take the huge pay cut because, well, one, 65,000 was a lot better than the less than 30,000. I was probably making about 28, 29,000 at the restaurant a year, and that's not enough to really live. So when I upgraded to 65,000, that's more than double, and that was a huge, like, that changed my life. Like, guys, if you think about whatever you're making right now, and you were to make that like, if you were to make what you made in 1 month in 2 weeks, like, think about how nice life would be, right? If you were able to make whatever you make in 1 month in 2 weeks on a consistent basis, you'd be probably pretty stoked. And I was super duper stoked, super duper stoked. So when that happened, I was fine with the pay cut because, holy crap, 65,000 was like $1 million for me. I mean, it wasn't, but it was it made a huge difference in my life, and it really helped me and my wife out. So I agreed to that, and then I'm still at that company today. Now my pay has increased. I'm still actually underpaid. Uh, I guess I'll share. I don't really care. I make about 85,000 um at my current job. It's about 85,000 a year, and that's super underpaid still. Well, it's not super underpaid, but it is below average. And you guys know that I can code, right? I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. And I probably deserve to be making about 120. Honestly, like, I really feel like I'm that strong of a developer that I deserve to be making that much. But they were the ones that gave me my first chance. And when somebody goes out and makes an opportunity for me or gives me a chance to do something that's important to me, I really respect that, and I don't like to let people down. So, with that being said, I'm fine with being underpaid at my current job because that was my first real opportunity. They changed my life. But if I had to get a next job, then I would definitely be looking for definitely more than six figures, way, like, more than six figures. That's what I'd be saying. Um, but yeah, and I know somebody had asked, Keyshawn Keyshawn Rodriguez had asked how much do I charge. So now, and you got to keep in mind that I don't just make money only from my job. I actually make money from doing a little bit of YouTube. I make maybe about $100 a month from YouTube sometimes. And I'm working on building that up. I'm making a little bit more than $100 on my membership site. I make a little bit. I make around $100 on Udemy for one of the courses that I put out, which is also currently on my membership site. So I have a couple of um, streams of income, and I'm trying to work on those because what I would like to do is I would like to go full indie, and I'm actually working on getting a couple of apps out there into the world. I think I'm gonna just become an indie developer, based off of this what this 100 days of code or 100 days of hustle has taught me. It's teaching me that I should definitely be putting out more apps and charging people to use those apps and be making money that way. And I shouldn't be charging you guys to learn code because I want to help as many people as I possibly can. So, and if you're in here, then fine, whatever. Most people won't make it this far anyway. So I'll just share this little piece of knowledge that I'm planning on doing. In the next coming months, you'll actually see that a lot of courses that I make will be coming out for free. These will be full course. Uh, these will be full courses that will teach you everything that you want to know about that subject. And I'm thinking about making both the beginner, intermediate, and advanced course, all the beginner, intermediate, and advanced courses for free. This is an idea I'm currently struggling with. If you know, if you think about it, this is a very tough decision to make. I'm currently at a point to where I want to help as many people as possible. I want to do for you what happened to me, where I was able to double my income by learning something that I truly do love. I love coding, guys. I really do love. That's why I have, the code passionately, is because I really believe I enjoy this. It's a lot of work what I put on myself. I put a lot of work on myself, but I do love what I do. And yeah, I want to provide that for as many of you guys as possible. And not everybody in the world uh can afford to pay for courses. Now, I personally feel like everybody can afford the $8 membership that I put out, which is why I was going for volume. I was honestly going for volume. I figured, like, if I put out courses for $8 a month, and prices vary depending on where you live, because I know that some places have taxes, so it comes out to maybe $10 a month. But I wanted to just establish a steady stream of income that I could live off of and support my family. Now, some people are finding even the $8 to be a barrier, apparently, and I it's more important to me that I change somebody's life, or if I can, a lot of people's lives, than to make a little bit of extra money. The only problem is that I have a family and I'm the sole provider for my family. And it becomes tough. So it's an idea that I'm still struggling on, but it's it's something that I'm leaning more towards. And I got to see. So you guys are definitely going to see a couple of free courses coming out, and I'm not going to make the decision until after this 100 days of hustle has finished. So I will be releasing a free course in between that time, because I still need to release two more courses. One course I'm still not 100% on if I'm going to do it or not. But it will be free no matter what the course is going to be. It will be free. That will be available to everybody. The second course, I'm still planning on charging at first, but in the future, when I if I do decide to go free, then this one will also be made free. And this course would be making a social networking app all in code. So maybe making something like Twitter, or maybe a custom social networking app, and we're gonna do all that programmatically. But that one will be charged for, and that's gonna come out probably the first day of August. But yeah, it's a little bit of a dilemma that I'm working with right now, putting out courses for free, because that's that's less money for me and my family, which it's already not a whole lot, but any little bit does help. Um, it's just it's something that's been going through my mind. I want to help as many people as I can. I want to give my family a better life if I can. I'm gonna try to make both of those things happen, and who knows what will happen. Honestly, some people have responded in the chat. Much love, Kilo. Thanks. Watchwords 13. Appreciate that. Wow, I thought at least $1,000 for your channel. No, actually, YouTubers make almost nothing, guys. If you take into so if you think about YouTube in regards to what like, most people think that you make thousands of dollars in ad revenue, but you probably only make a couple $100 in ad revenue, and that really and that like who's like the biggest person in our community? If I had to guess, biggest person, I think it might be Let's Build That App, Brian Vung. If I had to guess how much he was making in ads, I would say that he's probably making about maybe $1,000 a month, and that's not a lot, especially for somebody like him, because from my understanding, he lives in the Bay Area, which is like the San Francisco area, and $1,000 doesn't go very far out there. So most of the time, and that's one of the biggest channels in the Swift community, guys. So you really have to think about me, that has a small fraction of what he has in terms of subscribers and views. Um, it's The ad revenue isn't how you make your money. The ad revenue is essential. YouTube is essentially used as a marketing platform, and that's how you might be making more money on YouTube. So like, you might be able to sell shirts, right? So I try to sell shirts, courses online, things like that. So you drive your traffic to your website, wherever you do plan on making money, and then that's how you would make that money. So yeah, YouTube doesn't really pay out a whole lot, not in ads anyway. Um, I Yeah, I would think you'd be making a lot from YouTube. No, well, not to cut you off, but is it possible to find out if a nearby phone have you have your app installed, or do not have it installed? Um, so you're trying to find out if somebody has your app installed. Uh, I mean, not easily. You can probably do something kind of sketchy and do some type of location services type of thing in the background, but you're gonna have to ask for location services, and then, or maybe do like a multi-peer connection or something like that. But it's not easy. But technically, yeah, you can. It's just like you would have to implement some other technology, but there's no easy way to do it. Before going free, why not go and pay what you can, even zero? Don't underestimate the power of goodwill. That's also something that I'm planning on doing. I was honestly, I'm like still bouncing around on ideas, guys. Like, so I'm like thinking like, oh, should I do like a GoFundMe where I ask for like $100,000, and that covers me for a full year, and then I could put out a bunch of free stuff for a full year, and then eventually what I'll do is I'll just charge businesses to advertise on those courses or something like that. Um, I don't know. Like, I'm still bouncing around a couple of ideas. I am looking. I If I do free, I definitely will have like a tip jar or something like that. Just like Stefan said, don't underestimate the power of free will, because I know that Some people will be generous, and especially if I can help them get a job, they might want to contribute some of what they made back to me as a way of saying thank you. Especially if they understand what situation I'm currently in. With having a family or something like that. Matt says Patreon. Yeah, it might be Patreon. I have to look into my options, but I'm definitely consider doing something like that if I do go free. The other thing is that if I am free, it will open up a lot more opportunities for me in regards to, like, I know that contracting work will be a little bit easier for me. I currently don't really have a problem getting contracting work, but I haven't really been looking, and I just pick stuff up whenever I feel like it. But I realize that there will be even more contracts that will come in. There will be even more mentoring, people that want mentoring, because I do mentoring as well. So people that want to have like more of a hands-on experience with me and go through mentoring, I know that that will increase that opportunity. Um, yeah, so there will be ways for me to make money as a result of doing all this. It's a little bit scary, honestly, like to do so much work, to put in so much work, and then just have it out there for free, right? Like, it goes against most business practices. But the fact that I'm an individual, I'm not like a real business. I don't really have anybody else to pay, and I currently do have a steady job. Well, actually, that might be going away in August, which is why I did this 100 days of hustle, is to try to get some of this stuff done before August. But yeah, anyway, yeah, it's a little bit scary, but I believe that it will work out for the best, and I will end up in a slightly better at least a slightly better situation than I was before. So I have a brilliant idea for an app. I just need a co-founder. Um, Omar, that's awesome, but I can't really work on a whole nother app right now. I have two other apps that I have to release to the App Store in this next. I only have like 88 days left. So I have to release two apps in 88 days. Um, if you want, what you can do is you can hire me for mentoring, and I can help you I can actually help you through the app so that you can develop it yourself. And then this way you get to keep all the rights to it, and then you get to go through it a little bit faster as well. But I can't really be responsible for creating somebody else's app right now, especially if you want me to be a co founder, because that usually means that you're not looking to pay a developer. Um, Dan, right back at you, bud. Anyone can have ideas. It's the execution that makes the money. Derek's exactly right. You have to execute. That's what's most important. Alan, have you ever considered going through the interview cycle? It could be used to leverage a pay increase or just a better offer. So I work at a startup, a very small company, and based off of what I've been hearing, there might not be a startup by the end of the year. So asking for a pay, I've been getting pay increases, like as you heard, that was like a $20,000 increase over what, 3 years, less than 3 years. So that's pretty good. But I understand that it's a startup, and I'm not really pushing for that. What's more important to me is to maintain my flexibility and to focus on getting you guys content and building up the Kilo Loco brand, so I can be self-sufficient, whether that means putting out paid courses or it means putting out free courses and then getting paid through other means, and also becoming an independent developer, putting out indie apps on the App Store, getting paid that way. Um, can you please make a video on how to work on payment gateways in iOS? What's going on, my Yank? Good to see you in here, man. Um, I will have a course on that. It's going to be in Stripe, and I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover everything that you pretty much need to know. Well, I shouldn't say that because it could be very deep. I'm going to make a course covering Stripe with your own backend. I'm thinking that the backend's probably going to be in Swift. And then I'm going to show you guys how all that works. So essentially, I'm going to make an e-commerce app because I know that's a huge business for a lot of people. So maybe your e-commerce app is just like something to buy like shoes or something like that, right? So we're gonna build all that out. I don't know exactly what it's going to be in exactly yet. I asked my current members on on the Kilo Loco membership what they wanted to see, and they asked for a social networking app in all code over the e-commerce app. So I had actually asked which one they wanted to see first. I'm going to do both, but it needed to fit in this 100 days of hustle, and they wanted to get the programmatically social networking app done first. So I will do that. It will probably come out around September. So yeah, I would guess it would probably be out sometime in September or so, if that's what the community is asking for at that time. Um, yeah, hit me up for mentoring, Omar. Just hit me up. Yeah, hit me up on like Twitter or an email. Either way works. The last thing that I want to say is that you guys will start seeing these courses done. I'm not going to be only doing Swift. So you're gonna start seeing courses or YouTube videos about Flutter. I'm enjoying Flutter right now. I don't like the Dart programming language, but I do like the fact that Flutter is going everywhere. It's on iOS and Android, obviously, but it's made its way to Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. It's also making its way onto the browser, but I'm just looking into it, and it's a skill that I want to have because it makes cross-platform development very easy, and that's a very important skill to have when you're looking to do contracting work. Now, when I'm talking about all these courses that I'm putting out for free, they will actually be duplicated into Flutter as well. And eventually, what I will do is I want to, like anything else that can be duplicated into a different language. Like I also plan on learning Kotlin. I'll also duplicate that same course into Kotlin. So if you were ever interested in learning a different language, you would be building the same exact thing but in a different language, a different framework. And the benefit to building the same exact thing as opposed to something that's slightly different is that you can directly translate what one language is doing, what one language and framework is doing to another language and framework. And I feel like that would speed up your the process of learning another language. So Flutter's a for sure. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do Kotlin too, because Kotlin's going everywhere. A lot of people ask me, am I going to switch to Flutter only? Definitely not. Swift is the best language, hands down. And the reason why I say it's the best language is because it is literally the best language for a beginner to learn. It's the cleanest looking language, it's the sexiest language, probably one of the more expressive types of languages. And I just love it. It popped my cherry. So I got sentimentals for it or whatever. But yeah, I'm not going anywhere on Swift. And also, Swift is growing, guys. In case you didn't know, in case you didn't watch this week's Swift news with Sean Allen, let me show you guys. Hold on. Let me show you guys this. Hold on. I want to show you guys something real quick. I want to show you that Swift isn't going anywhere. And I'm going to have a whole video dedicated to this. But since you guys are here and I'm talking about all these big things that I want to do, I don't want anybody to get scared about my decisions or something. All right. So, What I wanted to show you is that Swift is getting bigger and it will probably eventually take over the world. Webassembly. And the reason for that is because now Swift is making its way on to WebAssembly, which is something that's trying to replace JavaScript. Now, nobody really likes working with JavaScript, which is why there's so many different frameworks uh, for JavaScript, because nobody wants to work with it. They really don't, but they have to. Where is it? I can't find it, but let me see. I can't find it, but anyways, oh, is it that? Yeah, WebAssembly. I'm not sure this thread. Um, anyways, WebAssembly is essentially just something that's there to essentially replace JavaScript. So if you could write out Swift and replace JavaScript with it, now you guys, guess what? You're web developers. So that would be nice, wouldn't it? Maybe it's this. I don't know. Yeah. Seems like, oh, maybe they're still looking into it. Anyways, the fact that it's even being considered for WASM, for WebAssembly, is super huge. So that means that as a Swift developer, you're going to be able to reach more platforms. You could currently code on iOS, watchOS, tvOS, macOS, obviously, right? But you can also do server-side Swift with Vapor, Katura, Perfect, any of these. You can also do stuff on things like Raspberry Pi. And then on top of that, there's this thing that I just recently found out called Scade. Now, I'm not currently endorsing this because there is some type of pricing that's associated with it. Now, to get started, it's like zero, right? But, and I'm going to go over it. Just the fact that there's a pricing model, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't even want to look into it. But I want to show you guys the theology behind it, that you can write Swift and get it onto Android now, right? That is something that can happen. So Swift isn't going anywhere. The majority of people will want to learn Swift because it's the easiest language to get up and running with. As the biggest barrier to entry with Swift is simply having a Mac. If you have a Mac, you can get Swift no problem, and it really doesn't even matter which Mac you get, as long as it's like newer than, I don't know, 2009, right? You can get Swift on your Mac, and then you could create an iOS app. And learning iOS is literally the easiest thing to learn, like in code, because it's all rolled into Xcode, right? Whereas when you're learning something like Flutter, when you're learning Kotlin, when you're learning web development, there's all these like random things that you have to like install, and it's such a pain in the ass, especially if you've never worked in the terminal before. The only reason why I was able to learn some of these different things and actually download, like, to work with Python, right? You have to do like terminal stuff, you have to download the IDE, everything's like separated, you don't even know where to go after. Like, there's so much that you have to do just to get started with all these other languages. And Xcode, like, just being on a Mac and getting Xcode, or on a Hackintosh, or whatever you get to have Mac OS. If you could get Mac OS, you can download Xcode, and if you can download Xcode, you can immediately start writing Swift. So that is literally why Swift is the best language, and why it's going to kill everybody else. It's going to kill all the other languages in the future, but right now it's still too early to be working with something like Scade, or like, I don't even know if this even works, but the fact that the theology is there, and that somebody has been able to make it work. I'm just waiting for the one that's adopted by the community, the one that's absolutely free, and community supported and all that stuff. I'm waiting for that to come out, and then everything else is dead. Kotlin's dead, Java's dead, JavaScript's dead, all of it's dead. It's all dead. Flutter's dead. Now these other languages that I just named are obviously going to still be around. Like I say, they're dead because, like, I mean, C has been outdated for so long, and people still write in C because it's super powerful. It gives you much more access. But like, there's all these different languages that are much better to use for a lot of different scenarios. But people still use something like C or Java, like just because they're so strong. But you can still accomplish almost anything that you would accomplish with these other languages in a different language, but it may not be, you know, quite as efficient or something like that, right? So there will always be these secondaries just because, you know, personal preference, right? And then, you know, it might not be the best for all the jobs, which nothing ever will. Nothing will always be the best for the job. Like when you're working with a general purpose language, that it's just that, which Swift, what Swift is, it's a general purpose language. It's built for general purposes, which means that a new language could come out, implement everything that Swift has, and be specialized for something like iOS development, but like something different. And it can probably perform a lot better than Swift. But just the ability to, you know, work in one language is going to be huge. And that's why I feel that Swift is going to be a major game. It's here for the stay. So all you Swift developers, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Stefan hooked it up with a super chat. Appreciate that. 4.99. I know you like making your own coffee, so it doesn't have to be for tomorrow morning Starbucks latte this time. Keep it up. You know, Stefan, I actually I did take a picture, but I never sent it. I was just so busy that day. I was running around. I think that day was actually my son's birthday, and I actually had committed to not working. But I did take a picture. I did take a picture because I did remember. I just didn't know where to post it. I didn't know where to find you on Instagram or anything like that. So, but I did take the picture. I wanted to show you that I was thinking about you when I was drinking it. Hold on. It's probably gonna take a little while, but right here. This picture, hold on, I have to make sure that I have it centered. This picture was specifically for Stefan because you bought me that coffee. That picture right there, bam, and I could even prove it. Oh, it was on a Friday. It was on a Friday. I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna focus, but yeah. Anyways, it was on a Friday, right there. But yeah, I really do appreciate it. Any support that I get, I really appreciate it. So Stefan, thank you for the super chat. Really helps me and my family out. Not going to be able to make coffee tomorrow morning, anyways, because I actually should go to bed right now. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have to make my commute out to Santa Monica. So I live in Yucaipa, which is a city which is about 80 miles away from Santa Monica, and I have to take 3 trains. If you guys are following me on Instagram, you can look up how my commute works. It's about 3.5 hours one way, and I have to wake up at 5 tomorrow to get there at like 9:15. So yeah, I'm probably gonna go right now. I won't be able to make my own coffee, but I will definitely be thinking of you. No homo. I'll be thinking about you tomorrow when I'm drinking coffee at work from their espresso machine that actually does all the work for me. Real quick, Derek asked, what I learned in college is choosing the right tool for the job. For right now, Swift is everything for iOS development. Um, yeah, so the reason why I'm using Flutter, like I said, is it's an important skill to have when you're trying to do cross-platform develop. Like you need something to do cross-platform development. And I don't know enough about Kotlin to write an app. I've done a Kotlin course. I know how to do a little bit of stuff in it, but I haven't really committed to learning it. And it's just faster this way. So if I wanted to pump out projects, being able to write once, get it on both platforms for a client is very very important. You know, to pump out that to pump out those projects and get those clients done and get onto the next one. But yeah, Choose the right tool for the job. You coming to San Jose still? Heard your Airbnb. Damn, dude, you still up too? Emmanuel. Yeah, so I'm actually gonna do a review on Airbnb after I actually have the experience. I'll still be out there. I mean, I already bought the airplane ticket. I'm going out there. We definitely got to hook up or meet up. That sounds kind of weird. Hook up. We got to meet up when we get out there, Emmanuel. But yeah, I got a different Airbnb. I'm paying double of what I should have been paying, but whatever. Are you worried Apple is not any more surprised than before, so it makes Swift less lucrative? Are you worried Apple is not any more surprised than before, so it make Swift less lucrative? Not sure what you're asking, bud. Um, in regards to Apple and Swift, my thoughts. I'm gonna just give you my thoughts. So when it comes to other languages, let's say we're talking about Kotlin native. When it comes to other languages being supported on iOS, keep in mind that Apple is notorious for only wanting to play with their own tools, right? That's more of a past way of how they were thinking, and things have definitely been changing inside of Apple with the way that they make their decisions now. But more likely than not, nothing's coming into Apple. Apple isn't going to accept Kotlin as a native language. It's not going to accept any other language as a native language. Swift is literally the best language for beginners. So why would they encourage anybody else to use any other language, even if it did get accepted? Um, I feel that eventually, after enough time has passed, Objective C will be phased out. There will be a need for Swift to become better in the sense that it needs to be able to replace things like Objective C++. So maybe we have Swift++ or something like that. But it would need to be able to replace things like Objective C++. Um, so I feel like Apple's going to move forward. I feel like Objective C will eventually be phased out, and Objective C is in this special situation to where it can die, whereas I don't think Swift is likely to die, because Objective C is, from my understanding, is limited to only development on Apple. Everything else you would just use something like C++ or some other language. You wouldn't use Objective C for it. I don't know what else can run Objective C, but it's not a general purpose language from my understanding. So if Apple decides to phase out Objective C, then it essentially dies, right? Whereas Swift, since it is a general purpose language, right? And let's say Apple decided to, go back on their word where they're like pushing for us to learn Swift, and they're like, oh, well, never mind, just use Objective C, but we'll still support Swift anyways. Um, Keep in mind that now you have Swift that's being used for, you can use Swift on the server, you can use Swift on like a Raspberry Pi. It looks like it's making its way over to Android slowly but surely. So Swift isn't going anywhere. I highly doubt Apple's gonna leave Swift behind. It makes too much sense. But yeah, um, Swift is here to stay. Apple most likely gonna keep pushing Swift since it's easy to learn. And if you've noticed, Apple is primarily focused on getting into the education and the health fields, which is where there's big money. So most likely they're going to keep on this path. They spent a ton of money on Swift and documentation, like you said. They just need some way to support low-level development like Objective C++. Yeah, exactly. So if there is a version of Swift that can support that can do stuff like Objective C++, which I don't even know what Objective C++ actually is or does. I just know that they use it for some stuff in like the nitty gritty, like Like when you're trying to do the amazing stuff, that's when you have to use things like Objective C++. Um, but yeah, if Swift gets to that level to work that low, it's gonna be replaced, I think. Kilo, actually, I'm looking for a full-time job in iOS and wanted to know how can I apply to companies outside of India for this job role. Any ideas? So, like I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, what you can do is you can go onto these sites. I think it was Matt that mentioned them, uh, Fiverr or Freelancer. You could go onto one of these sites, right? Ones where you actually get to apply directly to a customer. Um, Now this is for remote work, and I'll talk about for a company next. But um, if you're looking for remote work, let me double check iOS, and I know, yeah, you're just saying you want to apply to those companies. So if you're looking for remote work, then what you're probably going to want to do is if it's like if you're looking to do contracting, or if you want to make sure that it is just a company, then what you can do is you can do all the work up front. Well, not all the work, but you could do a lot of work up front, come up with a prototype, and submit that with your application. So just show a couple of screens, uh, like of what you think the app is that they want. If you could show, like, if you could get the MVP out and send that in with the application, like, there's no reason why they shouldn't hire you. That you already got some progress on it, like you're already ahead of the game. But it would definitely help your chances. Like if you could come up with a prototype or a MVP, just like the basics, even if it looks ugly, I would recommend trying to make it look pretty. But if it's even if it looks ugly and it does the job of what they're essentially trying to describe, it's just not exactly how they envisioned it, that's fine. Come up with the MVP and send that in with your resume, a short video, or somewhere where they can see it. Just direct them to that source, and that's going to help you a lot. If you're looking to get a job at a medium to large size company, keep in mind that companies these companies most likely will not want to hire you as a full-time employee unless you work there. Now, this isn't going to always be the case. You can definitely find a position where you're able to work remote and it is a full-time position. But from my understanding and from what I've seen other people do, is this usually doesn't happen unless you've worked for the company, have shown that you're a good worker, and that you're trustworthy to work at a certain level, even if you're not in the office. So what I'm saying is you would essentially have to work at that company before you can go remote. So let's say since you're in India and let's say you wanted to work in the US, I wouldn't count on you being able to work remotely at a big company. And like I would say that it's not likely for you to get hired at a medium to big company and stay remote. Um, I would also say that it's not likely for you to get hired at a medium to big company. Yeah. I would say that if you did want to apply to a medium to big size company and be remote, that they probably expect you to work there probably a year or two before you can work remote. Um, and that might not even happen. So just keep in mind that medium to large size companies, they probably want somebody to come into the office. Medium to large size companies, you're not going to be the only developer, and especially if you're in India and you're trying to apply for the US, it's most likely not going to work out because just the time barrier, the fact that you're on the opposite side of this planet and it's a completely different time for you right now, and to communicate with you when you're awake, even if you're planning on staying up, but more likely than not, it's just going to be too much of a hassle for them to deal with when a medium to big size company could just get somebody that's right here. Why would they want to go somewhere else? Like, why are you that valuable? Um, Not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying that it's less likely to happen. So if you want to get hired at a medium to large size company, I would say that you would have to definitely consider relocating. You're definitely going to have a strong portfolio for them to consider even relocating you. And yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit tougher, but that's for medium to large size companies. Uh, for contracting or remote work for a small business is definitely something that's a little bit more doable, especially for a startup. Startups definitely going to be willing to work remotely. Just keep in mind that startups and small size companies do definitely pay a lot less than medium to large size companies. But if you're fine with that, once again, that those are the companies that you want to send a prototype to, show off your work before they even get to talk to you, and you want to just apply to maybe like 5 to 10 of those companies, create a prototype, send it in, and I think that will definitely help your chances. But yeah, look on places like Fiverr and Freelancer, and then keep in mind that networking is probably the best thing to do. So I know that you do have a YouTube channel. Reach out to your audience, see if anybody there knows, or check out Twitter. Like if you are already talking to somebody on Twitter, then you might want to reach out to them or post to Twitter. Anybody that's following you that sees your tweet, maybe they can help you out. Just be careful that you don't reach out to somebody that you don't know. You just go and follow them, and then you start asking them to do something. Like that's not really a good look. So you don't want to do that. But that's what I would recommend. Marina says, "Do you believe a beginner should try to land a job first or make their own apps in order to master iOS development?" Well, first of all, mastering iOS development, that's relative to everybody. You can't really master iOS development because that doesn't really mean anything. Like, what does a master know? You know, um, it could be different. Like, you could work in this industry. You could have been working in this industry for 15 years or some, no, well, probably like 10 years. You could have been an iOS developer for 10 years, not know shit about table views. You just been you just been working on audio and video and doing the best, streaming or whatever, right? Like you could literally be working in the field for super long and not know an entire subject. You might not know anything about core data. You might not know anything about table views. You might not know anything about audio or hell, even networking. You might not even know anything about networking. I mean, I'd be super surprised about the networking part, but yeah, like mastering iOS development, that's not even a real thing. So don't focus on mastering iOS development. I would say that what you want to do is just start putting out apps, and then if you really need a job, then keep applying, but do both. Like, why do you have to just do one or the other? You like I said, an app is definitely going to help you, right? Like having an app on the App Store is going to make you feel more confident about your abilities, and that is going to show through in the interview that you're confident about yourself. You don't make any apps, you don't put anything out on the App Store, you're lacking a certain confidence that other people might have because they put, even though it's a crappy app, right? Even though it might be a crappy app, they put it out on the App Store. They have that confidence that you don't, and that's going to show through in the interview. You're going to be more nervous. You're not going to be sure of your abilities, and when they see that you're not sure of your abilities, why would they hire you? So psychologically, it makes sense to put out an app before you apply, but you don't have to. You technically can get hired. It's going to be a little bit harder, but you can get hired without doing it. Um, but yeah, why not do both? Put out apps while you're waiting to land that job. This way, it shows that you're an active developer. It's not like, oh, I finished my whatever course, got this BS certificate, and you should hire me just based off of that. It shows that you're actively working on improving your skills. Derek says Objective C++ is a wrapper that allows you to wrap C++ into iOS. Like if you want to use OpenCV for computer vision, which is in Python and C++. You write your code in C++, then use a wrapper and write Objective-C to use your C++ code. Since Swift is compatible with Objective-C, you can use Objective-C as middleman. That's kind of weird because I thought that I'm pretty sure you can consume C libraries, and if you can consume a C library, that means that you should be able to consume a C++ library. And I mean, I'm just speaking out loud here, but I just feel like if you can consume a C library from Swift, I don't see why you can't make a C++ library out of your code and consume that. Just seems kind of weird to me, but I mean, I'm not trying to argue. I'm just stating how I feel about that. Thank you for the cool videos for newbies in Swift. Greetings from Russia. Nice to talk to you from in Russia from US. Sergey also says, you have a video about Firebase database. Even for a beginner, Firebase is obviously the perfect solution for beginners. Do you plan to tell about the rest of the Firebase tools? Yeah, so I'll have a Firebase course in the future as well. Glad that you acknowledge my YouTube work, and thank you so much for the valuable information, Kilo. I hope your suggestion will definitely help me out. I feel that it will, honestly. I mean, obviously, or else I wouldn't give it. But yeah, if you're willing to just do a little bit more work up front, it shows that you're taking the initiative, and that you probably want it a little bit more than the rest. Keep in mind that the story that I told you where that person didn't even want to look at it, that sucked. It sucked. And that's going to happen sometimes. But it will give you a better opportunity if they can see that. So, yeah. All right, guys, that's long enough. I'm going to get out of here. I got to go to bed. I got to wake up tomorrow morning. I was going to edit my video. Like, I was going to release another video. I already have 2 recorded. And then I was also going to upload my podcast, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen tonight. So I'm just going to go to bed. Thank you so much, Stefan, for your contribution once again. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate that you came back over here, because you've already given to me once, on one live stream. That was my first ever super chat, and then you give to me again. Super amazing, Stefan. Really appreciate it. I can't. I don't know what to say, man. I just really appreciate it. It means a lot. And Thomas Watland, thank you so much. You donated 20 NOK. Really appreciate it. I think somebody said it's kroners, 20 kroners. Really appreciate it. Any contribution from you guys helps. I don't know how to express it to you guys. All I can do is just try to put out more content and just say thank you that way, is to provide you guys with some type of valuable content. But yeah, Rain U says thanks. Good night. Good night, Rain. Really, I hope I'm saying that right. That's how you say it in English, but probably not. You're possibly. Derek says you are possibly be right with the way Swift supports C libs. Objective C++ was invented before Swift ever came into play. Coding is interesting. Oh, okay. So you're saying that maybe you can do something like this in Swift. All right. Cool. Yeah. So that's what I was just kind of thinking of. I've only heard people talk about Objective C++. That's why I was asking. But yeah, or that's why I was speaking the way that I was speaking. Not trying to be ignorant or say that I know it all. It just seemed like a little bit weird. And yeah, obviously, like these things that used Objective C++ aren't easy to port over to Swift, I would guess. All right, and then Dan says good night, and then Sergey says thanks. So thank you guys again. Thank you all for everything, and especially thank you to Stefan and Thomas. I don't want to mess up his name. Yeah, Thomas. Really appreciate it again. Thank you so much. Yeah, guys, be on the lookout for everything. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It does make me feel good when I get bigger numbers. It is just a vanity number, but it makes me feel good. Feel like I'm doing cool stuff too, because I see people like Coding with Chris. Let's build that app. Sean Allen, Big Mountain Studio. I see all these big guys, and it's like, oh man, I want to be like them. And then when I get that higher number, it makes me feel like cool. I'm like them, you know. So thanks again. Have a good night, and make sure you guys go out there and keep coding passionately.